My teammates knew at the end of the game, if it was close, I was going to take the shots. They knew that.
Right.
So they could set better picks. They'd go for the offensive board. But, 80% of the time, I was going to take that shot. The game of basketball is pretty simple if the ball's moving. I just thought I got the most out of our guys just by playing hard. Now, the point guard can do whatever he wants to do. It doesn't matter where it ends up because it's always going to end up to the best player.
Even though he couldn't run or jump and was often labeled as having the worst athleticism in the NBA, Larry Bird knew how to shut everyone's mouths and prove he was ready to become a superstar, dominating the most powerful players of the time with his intelligence, determination, and exceptional scoring ability.
And away with 12. Celtics have got 3 seconds. 2. Bird, a runner. It's good!
Larry Bird's life is a story of perseverance, from a child sweeping streets or picking up trash in a small Indiana town to becoming a 3-time NBA champion with the Celtics, a 3-time MVP winner, 2-time Finals MVP, and widely regarded as the best forward of all time. Now, 32 years after the retirement of Larry Legend, it is time to look back on one of the greatest shooters in this sport, dominator of the 80s, the best trash talker, protagonist of one of the most historic rivalries in the sport, and the player who, despite adversity, became an NBA legend and an icon for the city of Boston. Want to know how a player can reach the NBA elite without being a super athlete? Stay with us and you'll discover just how smart this guy truly was.
Probably with a little off balance. Bird with the steal behind the back to Nate Archibald. Back to Bird.
Larry Joe Bird youth was marked by poverty and hard times. He came into this world on December 7th, 1956, in a small town called West Baden Springs in Indiana, but where he would spend most of his early years would be in French Lick. As the fourth of 6 children born to Georgia Kearns and Claude Joe Bird, Larry grew up in a family with very limited resources. His father took on any job he could find, while his mother worked as a waitress, barely having enough time for their children, let alone the means to provide everything they needed. Despite her tireless efforts to give them a better life, the family continued to struggle. Because of this, Larry Bird had to work from a very young age, whether it was mowing grass, sweeping streets, or even collecting trash. Bird himself will affirm that being poor was a great motivation. Despite these hardships, young Bird found refuge in sports thanks to the support of his older brothers, Mark and Mike.
Prior to that NCAA tournament, still was the most watched NCAA Finals game in NCAA history.
It was the most celebrated confrontation in college basketball history.
At Springs Valley High School, Larry Bird became immersed in the passion for basketball that existed in Indiana. Although he initially preferred baseball, watching his brother become the basketball star of their high school changed everything for him.
At school, everybody's telling me my bigger brother was a great player and I can't wait to grow up and try to be like him. And you can see he was proud of how he played on a certain night, and I sort of wondered.
Until then, Bird was just an average player, but he started dedicating more time to basketball. Every morning, rain or shine, Larry was up by 6, practicing his shot over and over again. His relentless training and growing passion for the game would soon pay off, and Bird himself began to realize his potential. His hard training and growing passion for the game would pay off, and Larry Bird himself would realize this.
I had a couple friends I played with a lot, but I was picking up on things that I thought that were relative simple moves that they had a hard time with, and that's when things started clicking a little bit for me.
Larry Bird would join his high school's basketball team while his father hung out in the bars of the city. Larry would find in Coach Jim Jones a guide and example to follow. Coach Jones would quickly realize the great abilities of Larry Bird, a great knowledge of the game for his age, a strong work ethic, above all, an extraordinary ability to score. Bird knew that his physical limitations left him at a disadvantage, so he had to quickly learn the basics of the game, displaying the game vision of a professional player even as a high school kid. In his first year, Bird earned a spot in the starting lineup, and by his second year, he was already the best player on his team. His coach and teammates did not refer to Bird as a bad athlete, but rather that he did not need to prove it, since his ability to dominate the game makes him a unique and different player.
No magic wand had touched him or a miracle had happened, because we'd never seen him play like that.
By his senior year, Larry Bird was averaging 31 points and 21 rebounds per game, retiring in 1974, being his school's all-time leading scorer and drawing the attention of the largest universities. Thus would come the proposal from the University of Indiana that offered him a scholarship and to be in the hands of the legendary Bobby Knight, in charge of the best basketball program in the country at that time. So Larry Bird would fulfill the dream of any Indiana child who he wanted to one day play for the Hoosiers. In 2 years, the Hoosiers would only lose one game and win a national championship, but without Larry Bird. Why? With only 24 days in college, Bird would leave again for his village in French Lick. For a boy like Larry Bird, accustomed to country life and being close to his friends, the pressure of being on a campus of nearly 30,000 students 100 kilometers from his home made him flee without explanation.
I think that the size of the school and not really having, that many friends there and not having a lot or coming from a lot, I think he just got a little discouraged and a little depressed and bailed out without really consulting anyone.
I think he probably felt scared that he disappointed maybe his family, maybe the community.
Larry was always a man very attached to his family and his roots. He simply did not feel good being so far from home. Despite the anger of his mother and loved ones, Bird is convinced that it was the best decision. Back in French Lick, Bird would begin looking for jobs, one of those as a trash collector. For many, it was a tragedy that the pride of Springs Valley and the one chosen by the most popular university in Indiana would end up cleaning the streets of his town by collecting trash.
Some days we picked up trash once a week. The next days we might be cleaning the streets. And the guys I was working with were great guys. I knew them all my life, and I'm still grateful that they gave me the job.
But this would not be all. In 1975, a tragedy would come for Larry Bird and his family. His father, Joe Bird, had committed suicide due to trauma generated in his time as soldiers and a deep depression. An event that greatly affected Larry Bird because he was the closest to his father and where he himself would say that he felt it like a betrayal, but after a few years he understood why he did it.
There's nothing you can do about something like that. I mean, he chose the way he wanted to die, and he did it, and it's just unfortunately that some people have problems like that, but I wish he was here, but he's not. So I have to go on with my life and try to make the most of my life, just like the rest of my family has, and that's the way we dealt with it.
After that sad chapter, college offers continued to come to the Bird family until finally Larry would choose Indiana State as his new home. Although it was not easy to convince him, the Sycamores gave Bird everything he needed to feel at ease, a smaller and more welcoming university, while his teammates and fans welcomed him as one of their own from the first moment. And after so long, the world was finally ready to see the beginning of the great Larry Bird.
Larry Bird in the corner, getting around Zahn, putting it up. Bird from the corner. Reed gets it to Heaton. Heaton, a quick left hand. He made it. Bob Heaton keeps Indiana State undefeated. They're over the Final Four.
In his first season with the Sycamores, Bird averaged 32.8 points, 13.3 rebounds, and 4.4 assists, being the top star of his team. Larry Bird led a small college with average players to national and world basketball fame. By his third and final year with the Sycamores, Bird led his team to the finals with a record of 33 wins and 0 losses, where they faced the Michigan State Spartans led by one, Magic Johnson. There would begin one of the great rivalries in the history of basketball. The duel between Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson would be a phenomenon of both ethnicities, playing styles, personalities, and even their places of upbringing. That final on March 26, 1979 would be a 75-64 Michigan State victory, being the game with the highest rating in NCAA history. That day, Larry Bird did not have his best performance, being overshadowed by the Spartans' defense, who had a clear strategy not to leave Bird alone for a single second, while Magic Johnson would score 24 points, taking the first round of this historic rivalry.
So we sit down there and we talked, and my mom, my brothers thought the world of him.
His mother was so nice, making sure I had enough to eat. I just saw my mother. It was crazy.
He charmed her. You can see it. But that's Magic. He makes everybody feel welcome and warm, and he's a con man.
Although Larry Bird would win 3 NBA rings in later years and become one of the best players in history, he would certainly never forget that loss against Michigan State and Magic Johnson in front of more than 15,000 people. Bird commented a few years ago, "You never recover from something like that. It's impossible to get up when your heart is broken. I knew that day I had to play the best game of my life to win, but I didn't do it, and I disappointed everyone."
It was odd that they drafted a player that they couldn't have right away, and it was more frustration for the fans.
White guy, Indiana State, can't jump, can't run.
The place, I hope you all realize this. We got Larry, one or two little moves, and we're ready to go.
The first game, I just remember so vividly, they announced Larry Bird's name, and somebody from one of the top tiers threw out a dove, and it flew around the building.
Oh, that was incredible. Yes, it flew across the garden, and the place erupted. That was unbelievable. This was the unleashing of Larry Bird.
The Hick from French Lick said goodbye to Indiana State with several individual titles, including the Naismith Trophy as Best University Player and averaging 30.3 points, 5th best mark in NCAA history, 13.3 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. Larry Bird arrived at the 1978 draft as the treasure that everyone wanted to get. However, Bird had already decided that no matter who chose him, he would return one more year to finish his studies.
It really wasn't that tough because I wanted to get my education while I was there because I knew I would never go back. And the one thing about athletes is they always say, well, I'll go back next year and do it. But
The Pacers had the #1 pick in that draft, and although they tried to convince Bird to join them, the man from French Lick refused, just as he did with Portland and the other teams pursuing him. Then the Celtics and coach Red Auerbach came in with the 6th pick. Even so, Bird initially rejected Boston as he didn't know the team well and wasn't interested in playing there. However, after much persistence from Auerbach and owner Henry Mangurian, they were able to convince Bird to sign, knowing they wouldn't have him until the year after his selection. This resulted in the Indiana forward signing the most lucrative rookie contract in the history of the nation's professional leagues, $325 million for 4 years. The question that resonated across the country was, why? Why would the great Boston Celtics offer such a contract to a rookie who couldn't jump, was slow, and came from the countryside? What did they see in him?
It's just the kid. I mean, he doesn't look all that good. And there's talk about how slow he was. He couldn't jump. He couldn't defend.
I think when Larry first arrived, everybody thought, well, here's a kid now that I don't know if he's going to be able to play in this league.
Larry Bird's greatest strength was his confidence. His teammates and coaches recall that no player was more optimistic or motivated than Bird when he stepped onto the court. That passion and belief in his abilities allowed him to attempt plays others couldn't even envision or thought impossible. Though he lacked the physical power of his rivals, Bird compensated with a sharp basketball IQ, organizing his team and making them play at his pace. It was like he had eyes everywhere, they said. Bird could visualize every play long before it happened, like a spider waiting for prey to fall into its web. The Celtics knew this young man would dominate the NBA. They didn't need a Magic Johnson or a Julius Erving. They didn't need a player who could leap through the air or race across the court. They needed a player who understood what the team needed, someone who could control the game, a complete player in every facet, and that was Larry Bird. I couldn't run fast or jump high, so I had to come up with another trick to stand out. Being able to learn quickly, go out and learn the fundamentals and try to protect them, and try to be there without having quickness or the ability to jump. I'm a better athlete than people think. I'm good at almost everything I do. There's no doubt I have to work a little harder than someone who is naturally gifted, Bird once said.
There were no doubts. We were watching Indiana State games here in Boston. Local TV made sure that they got their games because the Celtics were so bad, and he began to embody and represent.
Was 2 years ago by the Celtics, and through 2 months of on and off again negotiations, at times quite bitter between two old adversaries, Red Auerbach and attorney Bob Wolf, Larry Bird became a very rich young man this morning. The 6'9" All-America from Indiana State signed a 5-year contract worth more than $3 million, and with that, he's expected to help turn around the Celtic franchise, which has fallen on hard times in recent years.
I guarantee you I'll give 100% every time I come out, and if I get a torn toenail or something, I won't sit out. I'll play as hard as I can every night, and I hope I can bring excitement to the fans, and I'll never give up.
In 1979, Larry Bird arrived at the Boston Garden, one of basketball's great arenas, to begin his career with the Celtics. Many doubted how a skinny, slow, non-jumping, country-looking kid could become Boston's new hope, let alone lead them to 3 championships over a 13-year career. But Bird quickly won over the fans. At that time, Boston was predominantly white with racist tendencies, and they saw Larry Bird as the great white hope.
Turn to the hook shot. Bird. Keith, what's been the story with him? He played quite a bit at first. Larry Bird makes a beautiful steal from Bingo Smith. They go back to Bird, who came around the corner. Here's Bird. Boy, did he look tough there.
Before Bird's arrival, the Celtics had a dismal 29-53 record, but against all odds, Bird's impact was immediate, and Boston quickly became one of the best teams in the league. Everyone soon realized this boy was different. He played without fear of being a rookie and had immense confidence in his game. A great example of this came when Clyde Drexler, one of the NBA's best guards, had to defend a young Bird. I was a rookie and I had to defend him. He looked at me and said, "You can't stop me." I told him that he was too confident and he said, "Confidence? But if you're a rookie, you don't know anything yet." Then he scored like 10 points in a row. The coach had to sit me down and Bird walked past our bench laughing at me. Drexler comment: Bird had earned the respect of his teammates and the NBA, and a team that seemed destined to fail managed to achieve 61 wins and only 21 losses. That same year, Bird faced an old acquaintance, Magic Johnson, who had also entered the NBA that year as one of the stars of the Lakers. The 1979-80 season will be remembered as the year Bird and Johnson went head-to-head for Rookie of the Year, drawing the attention of fans and being credited with saving the NBA from its worst years in terms of viewership and attendance.
His uncanny shot-making ability was countered by juggling floor leadership.
A lot, everybody, not just me and Magic probably, but this is the first shot they had all year and they won.
But there was no doubt, averaging 21.3 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 1.7 steals, Larry Bird won the Rookie of the Year award with 63 votes compared to Magic's 3 votes, as Magic averaged 18 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 2.4 steals that season. Larry Bird's Celtics reached the playoffs where they swept Houston in the semifinals but lost in 5 games to Philadelphia in the conference final, despite Bird averaging 21 points per game. In a twist of fate, that year's champions were Magic Johnson's Lakers, with Magic being named Finals MVP. The Rookie of the Year returned for his second season with the Celtics after training all summer, determined to deliver his best performance. He was joined by Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish, forming what would become a legendary team with Bird.
It's gone by in this first quarter. Here is Bird, 3-pointer. Against Parrish. They must pick up every loose ball that they can. And back live, Robert Parrish gives the sack.
As a small forward, Bird organized the Celtics game, proving lethal in scoring and always making the best pass for a teammate. Boston made the playoffs again in the 1980-81 season.
Oh, Larry Bird. One night in Phoenix, they were losing big time at the half. And they come out in the third quarter, and Larry did not take a shot, but dominated the game. He had 7 assists in the third quarter, and they came back and won the game. He could affect the game without taking a shot. Who else can you say that about to that degree? Nobody. Michael could never do that. Never. Michael had.
A determined Larry Bird was unstoppable, sweeping Chicago in the semifinals and coming back from a 1-3 deficit against Julius Erving's Sixers in the conference final. For the first time, Larry Legend would play in an NBA final, though not against Magic's Lakers, who had been eliminated by the Rockets. One of Bird's most iconic plays came in the final against Houston. After a 5-meter shot that Bird knew would miss as soon as it left his hand, he sprinted for the rebound and scored in midair with a hand-switching layup, an undeniable display of Bird's intelligence and determination. After 6 games, Larry Bird and the Celtics won the championship against the Rockets, marking Bird's first of 3 championship rings.
The world champion, the Boston Celtics.
Larry, there's a lot of talk about the great defense done on you. Your shooting wasn't going real well, but you really came back with a super performance. How do you feel about having come so close in college, and now you're in the pros, you've got the big one?
No, this is a very big one for us. We practiced awful hard this year. We stuck together. When going got tough, we came through. They came back on us.
In 82 and 83, the Celtics remained one of the NBA's favorites, but they were eliminated in the playoffs both years. Although fans believed Bird had met expectations, Larry didn't feel the same. Bird put even more pressure on himself to become the best shooter in the NBA. From a very young age, Larry developed his own shooting mechanics known as the Bird throw, a technique that went against the recommended methods of the time, but that was the essence of Larry Bird doing things his way, regardless of his limitations or what others thought. Bird had so much confidence in his shot that, despite what the experts dictated, he became one of the greatest scorers of all time. By his retirement, Bird had achieved an impressive 89% free throw percentage, along with 47.2% in field goals and 32.1% in three-pointers. His shooting skills were so exceptional that he won 3 consecutive three-point contests, 1986, 1987, and 1988.
Well, I just worried about getting the 2-point balls down after I missed the shots, but I knew he just had 15 points, and I still had plenty of time. Once I got to the top of the key, I knew I had to make some.
We had a team there when we won in '81. I thought we was going to win 5 or 6 in a row because we had that much talent, but we just didn't do the things that it took for us to win a championship.
In 1984, Bird continued to dominate the NBA, leading the Celtics to their second NBA Finals under his leadership. In the finals, they faced Magic Johnson and the Lakers, resulting in one of the most contested and intense duels in basketball history. After 7 games, with Bird averaging 27 points and 14 rebounds in the series, the Celtics defeated the Lakers to win their second championship in 4 years. Bird was awarded both the MVP of the regular season and the Finals MVP.
Cooper goes for 3. It's over. The Boston Celtics are the NBA World Champions.
In the 1985 season, the Celtics and Lakers met again in the finals. This time, Los Angeles prevented Boston from winning back-to-back championships, and Magic won a round against Bird. Still, Bird was named MVP of the regular season for the second consecutive year. By then, Larry Bird was known as a vintage forward with a deadly jump shot and a three-point threat to any team. He rebounded like the best, and his defense was as solid as a brick wall, earning him a spot on the second all-defensive team 3 times. His passing ability was that of a creative genius on the court, making him without a doubt the most complete player the sport had ever seen. Bird also had a unique ability that stemmed from his immense confidence. He knew how to get under his opponent's skin.
I get a charge when I tell somebody on the opposing team that I'm going to hit the last second shot and then do it.
Bird's rivals and teammates not only remember him as one of the best players of all time, but there are also countless anecdotes about how Bird would taunt and make fun of his opponents, earning him the reputation of being the true master of trash talk.
Oh my God, Bird talked trash to everybody.
But didn't he? Did he get to a point where he had respect for you?
I always tell this story about Larry Bird. I remember him, he was cursing under his breath. And I asked him, I said, Larry, what's going on with you? He says, you guys are being disrespectful to me. And I says, what are you talking about? He says, you guys are putting a white guy on me. That's disrespectful.
Wait, who's the white guy you put on him?
I can't remember who it was. I just started laughing. I had no comeback. But he says, it's disrespectful when y'all put a white guy on me. And I'm sitting there like, I'm laughing in the middle of a game.
Exasperate and make fun of his rivals, but not in a dirty way or with insults. He did it with his game. His great rival Magic Johnson once said that when he couldn't play due to an injury, Bird approached him and said, he came up to me and said, man, I'm sorry you're not playing, but since you're here, I'm gonna put on a good show for you, so just sit back and enjoy it. I told him to leave me alone, but then every time he scored a basket, he turned around and looked directly at me. Not even one of the toughest and dirtiest players in history, like Dennis the Worm Rodman, could stand up to the true king of trash talking. In a matchup against the bad boys of the Pistons, Bird scored 4 consecutive baskets on the young Rodman. He then laughed and went over to the Detroit coach saying, "Who is defending me, Chuck? Is there anyone defending me? You better put someone in or I will score 60 points." Rodman later recalled, "I was glued to him, trying to prevent him from receiving the ball, and he was telling his teammates to pass the ball to him, that he was alone, to hurry up before the opponent realized and would cover him, and he elbowed me in the jaw and scored the shot in my face, and I told my coach, remove this guy and bring in someone who defends a little because it's very easy when I play so free." The year 1986 was undoubtedly the best for the Celtics during Bird's era. They achieved 67 wins and only 15 losses. Bird once again led them to the NBA Finals, this time against Houston, where he averaged a triple-double in the series, securing his 3rd and final championship ring with the franchise, his 3rd consecutive MVP, and his 2nd Finals MVP.
And lose only one on the parquet floor.
In the following years, Bird's Celtics were regular contenders in the NBA playoffs and finals, but they wouldn't win another championship. A remarkable fact is that during the 1980s, Bird and Magic won 8 of the 10 championships, with Bird claiming 3 and Magic 5. All the finals during that decade were contested by either the Celtics, the Lakers, or both. Despite their intense rivalry, Bird and Magic became great friends. A simple lunch at Bird's house was enough to bring them closer. The mother was lovely. She hugged me at the entrance and in many ways reminded me of my mother. He made sure we didn't lack anything, and I was able to meet Larry the Man.
And once we got out there on the stage, you were walking around, I could see the Boston Celtics t-shirt underneath, so I couldn't let it go. I just had to rip that thing open and let all the Celtic fans see that you really wanted to be a Celtic. But it might be your last time to be on. But it was a pretty good moment. I still sign all them pictures.
When Magic discovered he was HIV positive, Bird was one of the first to call him. Magic later admitted, "That night I didn't feel like doing anything except playing basketball." One of the best ways to define the rivalry between Bird and Magic is through Magic's own words. "Thank you for pushing me to greatness." I feel actually that we have pushed each other together. Every night I looked at the points I had scored and I hope I did the same to you. I have no doubt that there would have been no Magic Johnson without a Larry Bird.
You know, I would like to play a little bit longer, maybe a year or two more, but there's just no way possible I was going to be able to do that. So today I'm retiring and I'm still going to be around, but not in the capacity I once was. This is not a sad day. It's a very emotional day, but it's not really a sad day because I knew this day was going to come sometime and I sort of prepared myself, but once you sign the papers and say you're retired, or once you get up here in front of these people, it's a little bit different.
I can remember when I first came in the league, Artis Gilmore told me one time, he played for Chicago, he said, "If you expect to play a long time in this league, you better quit mopping up the floor." And I thought, well, he's crazy because that's what basketball is all about. We're getting a little bit older now and feeling the bangs and the bumps and bruises and all that. I can see where he's coming from, but I can't change my style of play. I got to play like that every night.
Although Larry Bird remained at the top of the game and was still posting great numbers for his age, a serious heel injury and chronic back problems signaled that the end was near. After 13 seasons in the NBA, all with the Celtics, 3 championship rings, 3 MVP awards, and 2 finals MVPs, Bird retired in 1992 after winning Olympic gold with the legendary 1992 Dream Team. Through countless hours of relentless training, overcoming obstacles, and staying true to his core values of hard work and self-belief, Larry Bird etched his name into basketball history. The iconic number 33 now hangs in the rafters of the Boston Garden, a symbol of greatness. Despite the limitations of his physicality, Bird's unmatched scoring ability, unparalleled court vision, and mastery of every facet of the game took him to the pinnacle of the NBA. His winning mentality didn't just make him a champion, it made him a legend. This is Larry Bird, the embodiment of greatness. If you want more legendary stories like this, hit that subscribe button and join Hoops Blitz on this journey through the greatest moments in basketball history.
Down here, you learn to play by yourself or with a friend, and if you're going to make anything of yourself, you got to do it on your own.